So in the first video, we established that Martin Luther, this professor of theology in Wittenberg, this Augustinian monk, had posted his 95 Theses on the door of the castle church in Wittenberg. At least this is how the tradition tells the story, that took issue with the way in which the Catholic Church thought about salvation, and specifically took issue with the selling of indulgences.
Luther was arguing against the sale of indulgences and that kind of monetary transaction for getting into heaven. So Luther, in one section of the 95 Theses, says, people are going to ask questions that we can't really answer about what we're doing with these indulgences, such as, why does not the Pope empty purgatory for the sake of holy love and the dire need of the souls that are there, if he redeems an infinite number of souls for the sake of miserable money with which to buy a church? The former reason would be most just, the latter is most trivial. So what he's saying is, if the Pope has the authority, the treasury of merit of all of the saints that he can distribute, why is he selling them to build the church? Why doesn't he just redeem the souls that are in purgatory and send them up to heaven if he has the power to do that? So Luther posts the 95 Theses in 1517. Word gets to the Pope. He's accused of heresy, but he's gaining support widely. And in 1521, he's called to a large council.
So this event we call the Diet of Worms, and it was under the auspices of the Holy Roman Emperor.
So this is an unfortunate name.
Yes, it
the
is.
Diet of Worms.
Nobody's eating worms.
But a diet is a gathering, a council, and Worms or Worms is a city in Germany.
So the new Holy Roman Emperor, who's, by the way, only a teenager at this time, has summoned Luther. He's given him an authorization of safe passage. That is, he won't be arrested on his way, and he is to testify at this council.
So Luther is asked if he authored the books. He's presented with his own books. Luther says, yes, I did.
And then he's asked, do you stand by the ideas in these books?
And Luther says, give me a day to think about that.
And that request is granted. He comes back the next day and by all accounts gives an eloquent defense of the ideas in the books and does not renounce any of the ideas.
It's pretty clear that the lines are drawn, and Luther leaves Worms. He's declared an unrepentant heretic. It's clear he's going to be arrested. Possession of his writings is forbidden, and he leaves the city of Worms. Remember, he's been granted safe passage, so he's allowed to leave Worms.
So Luther is able to do something that Wycliffe was not able to do, which is to continue his campaign.
Luther was going against one of the central doctrines of the church, and that was that you were justified, that is, that you got to heaven in two ways, according to the church. One, through God's forgiveness, through God's grace. The other, through things that you could do yourself, choices that you could make as a human being, through what the church called good works.
So by good works, we mean, for instance, helping to build St. Peter's Basilica.
Exactly, or donating money to the church.
Or helping the poor, or any of the things that we think in the modern world of charitable work.
Exactly. And Luther was deeply disturbed by this idea because in his own conscience, he felt so sinful that nothing he felt that he could do could help him get to heaven. There was not enough good works to do in the world to remove the sin that he felt that he lived with, and that all human beings lived with.
And so it must have been a tremendous relief when he read carefully the words of St. Paul.
Luther read St. Paul, who said, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God to salvation for everyone who believes. For in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith. As it is written, the just shall live by faith." Those last words were critical for Luther. That meant to Luther that one is justified, one gets to heaven through faith alone, not through good works. Salvation was something freely granted by God and not something that had to be earned by human beings.
So faith was a kind of gift that God gave you, and that faith was all you needed to get to heaven.
through faith alone is one of Luther's central ideas.
So all of this makes sense in relationship to the 95 Theses and to Luther's concern about indulgences, because the indulgence is this proposition that good works will hurry the soul to heaven, and that's precisely what Luther is taking the issue with.
And with really the whole authority of the church to forgive, to remit sin, and to allow a person into heaven. Luther's feeling was that the only power to do that was with God.
So he looks at his books and he does not renounce them.
No. And he eventually returns to Wittenberg and founds the Lutheran Church and sparks many other types of Protestantism that we'll talk about in the next video.